Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to today's conversation on Gift of Healing TV. And I apologize, we're late. I love the fun and games of technology. I am delighted for this program to be joined by Sue Ernst. Hi, Sue.
Hi, happy to be here.
And Jennifer Sproul. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello, Sara Jane, and everyone or anyone else who may be listening.
Oh, there will be, even if it's not live, but we have got Alicia with us by the looks of it. So hi, Alicia.
Hello.
Sadly, we haven't got Scott with us, so we wish him well, and we wish him well as soon as possible. Speedy recovery. So it's going to be the three of us, and I'm delighted to have two of my co-authors from Gifts of Wisdom, Practices for Healing and Empowerment. And we're going to be talking about Lifequakes, and we're also going to be talking about From Trauma to Transformation, a well-integrated approach to moving. So they're going to be the topics within the wisdom that we're here to share in this program. I'm going to ask you both just to share a little bit about yourselves, other than the fact, obviously, we've all been authors in the same book, and that book is... that looks like it might be back to front, but never mind. I'm sure you can all see it. So thank you for that. And Scott's one of the authors as well. So bless him. Get well soon, Scott. So Sue, share just a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I just recently moved to the East Coast about 2 years ago. I have lived all my life in California, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but recently moved out here, and I'm sort of flipping my bio around, if you will. I'm calling myself an author, beginning to write some children's books primarily, and in my spare time, I'm a commercial real estate appraiser, and I've specialized in appraising hotels, which I've done for about 35 years. I have 2 grandkids and a couple daughters out here, so we're all together, and it's been wonderful.
So thank you, Sue. And Jennifer?
So I am a realtor. I'm also in the DC metro area in the US, and I've been here since 1979. I became a realtor at 50, and I'm well past that now. And about 3 years ago, I launched a platform I call Gracing Agefully, which was, the mission was to change the culture of aging. And I did it based on an epiphany I had at 61 that I could live to be 120. So I took on the attitude that I was always only halfway. And now I am integrating it into my real estate business.
So thank you to both of you. And I'm guessing it's the real estate side of things that drew you together, or was it another aspect? Yeah, sort of supporting each other in other ways.
Well, Sue, I'll let you start that because
it's an interesting story, particularly for me. When I moved out here, as I said, about 2 years ago, I had the challenge of rebuilding my business, rebuilding my life, really. And in that process, in those early days, I joined a business networking group. And Jennifer was a member of that group. And turns out she became my mentor. And that's where the story begins between the two of us. Our relationship grew and grew. And there's a connection between us about the book and the chapters that we wrote in Gifts of Wisdom. As well, during that same time, Jennifer took me through a process that she'll explain in more detail, but it basically was a lesson in awareness. And I can say now, today, I'm a different person because of the process that we have been through. There's a lot to talk about, and I'll turn it to Jennifer for a moment.
So Sue and I met, as she mentioned, in the networking group, and she didn't mention that she is also significantly related to the publisher of our books. It's her daughter, Laura DeFranco, who was also at that point a very good friend. And Sue and I became very good friends, and I appreciate the fact that she considers me her mentor. But it was now 3 years into her moving from the West Coast, and she's in my age category, and I know that that's a very challenging thing to do. She had done a remarkable job of making a pretty abrupt and dramatic move at this point in her life. It was very brave. But she said to me within 3 years, I want to move again. And I sort of couldn't believe it. And she wasn't talking about moving out of the area. But I simply asked her why she wanted to move. And I could see from some of the things that she told me that the adjustment hadn't been as harmonious as she would have liked it to be. And I do attribute that to making a lot of decisions in a short period of time. And so I did kind of further pull her into this program, which I've created called Living a Well-Integrated Life, which simply allows you to be aware of the key categories of your life and make sure that you're honoring them all the time, because we do tend to focus an inordinate amount on our jobs and money and worries about those things, and the other things kind of get pushed to the side. So I just wanted to make sure that she recognized that she had a whole life to live now that she was here, and that I wanted her to make that next big decision with her whole heart in mind, and she did.
I think what was so interesting, Jennifer just called that an adjustment that I went through. It was more like a trauma that I didn't even know was on my radar yet. I made the decision at the invitation of my daughter, who at that time lived in San Francisco. She called me one day and she said, Mom, my partner and I, we need to move to the East Coast. He needs to be there for work. And I don't think I can do this unless you come along too. Well, my husband had died a few years prior. I was at a point where if she left, I would then be alone back in California. And I saw the opportunity to come out here and reunite with my other daughter, Laura. And without much thought, maybe 5-10 minutes, I was ready to go on my way, and literally made one of the biggest changes in my life without really thinking it through. And thank God, Jennifer recognized this right away. And, although she wasn't quite sure why I wanted to move again, I was, and I had reasons, but I had never been able to articulate it. And that's where our relationship has just become so precious to me. She helped me work through those steps. Jennifer pointed at her sign behind her, and it's 5 characteristics that she taught me to look at in terms of my awareness practice, looking at my spiritual side, my physical condition, my relationships, my mental and emotional status at the moment, and my financial status. Looking at these regularly and actually thinking through each one and realizing how they all are just so intertwined. And she just opened up an awareness for me and helped me to untangle the puzzle I had found myself in.
So I think one of the interesting things that happened was that very early on in the process, I have an assessment that I did for myself. I created this whole program for myself and found it to be very effective. And so the first thing I had done was an assessment of where I felt I was in each of those categories. And so I had Sue do it. And with that, I would say, oh, this is what's working, or this is what's giving me a higher score, and this is what's pulling my score down, so that it would give you some things to work on. And Sue came back in like 24 hours, and she was just appalled she made a list of all of the things that she had moved away from and basically taken out of her life overnight, and never really recognized how traumatic that is. And so that's why we said this is from trauma to transformation, because it's simply recognizing that, yes, I've lost all these things, and I have never stopped to grieve or give myself credit or really honor myself for having done it. And it really seemed to shift everything for you to recognize that.
It did. And I think I made a list. I'm staring at it. My cheat sheets are right over here in case I forget something, but probably 15 items that I listed on that day, the things I left behind. My beautiful home that I had had so much fun buying for myself and making it beautiful, and my 5 best girlfriends that all lived in the same building with me. We had developed a wonderful friendship. And I think the awareness of absolutely where every single restaurant and bar is in the town I lived in, and I could get there without even having to, look it up on a map. I've been going to the same doctor and dentist for 25 years. You don't think through these things sometimes when you're making a decision like this, or I should say I didn't. And so coming to DC, everything, literally everything was new and different. And at my senior age, I don't know if at anyone's age, but particularly for me, it has been traumatic. And I wasn't quite sure even until Jennifer and I started working on this, why. And she helped me to see the why.
So you created your own Lifequake then?
I was going to say the same.
Yes. I love that. You called it a Lifequake the other day. And from being from San Francisco, we never used the word quake in a sentence. But I thought that's actually described it quite well. It was a Lifequake. It was definitely from trauma to transformation. That is what it's been.
But I think a lot of people for different reasons and different things happening. My Lifequake, which was what I would, the term I used to use was like sort of wake up call, but that's what a Lifequake is. It can actually move you, and it ended up by moving me, but it helped me to leave my marriage. And at the same time, the company I was working for, we got told they were being taken over, and we could either move out of Northampton, where I was, down to Bournemouth, where I now am, or we could get made redundant, and I had a lot of stuff happen, but I felt myself being really lucky because I knew the marriage needed to end. The trauma had been the broken jaw. The trauma prior to that had been the story I shared in the book, Gifts of Wisdom. But the trauma of the jaw was what helped me to wake up. And sometimes we require that. Other times it's going to be sort of, we do it to ourselves. But I was accused when I said, I'm leaving my marriage and I'm moving. And I was told, you're running away. But my answer to that was, actually, do you know what? I'm not. I'm running towards my future, or I'm not running, but I'm stepping towards my future. And isn't it how we think about things that can also be, okay, yes, I had a sister that lived down here in Bournemouth. It did bring me down much closer to my own family. But I don't know, suddenly I was actually allowing myself to live an adventure. But it was starting from scratch.
Yeah. I love that. I love what you just said, Sara Jane, that you were not running away. And what I can see now is that for myself, and I think for you, is you were running to you. I've learned to look at what I want and make decisions for the rest of my life. And that's been another big light bulb moment for me, sort of as a consummate people pleaser. The decision to move across the country instantly, of course. My daughter needs it, I'll do it, no question, let's go. And that's sort of the way I've been all my life, and not always to my benefit.
I think it's interesting too, Sara Jane, you bring up your story, and I think that's what the Gifts of Wisdom is about, is every single person has a story of something that at the time was traumatic.
Yeah.
And in looking back and coming through it, we all look at it as really it was a gift. And so the book is perfect for that.
It was so funny, speaking of the Gifts of Wisdom, I think initially when we were invited to consider writing chapters, and we all considered that on our own, we were kind of envisioning a bunch of people in their senior years sitting around a campfire, maybe a couple youngsters sitting in front of us in the dirt, and we're sharing our great stories with them. And when we actually finally published the book, and I sat down and read all of these incredible chapters, they all resonated, I think, with all of us in one way or another. This book benefited not only young people, which I think we were all kind of writing for, hoping to share some some ideas with them so they wouldn't repeat our mistakes. But at the same time, it was so healing for, I think, for the rest of us. It was a great process.
I think it was cathartic for the majority of the actual authors themselves. Sort of actually getting to sit and write about and think about our own stories. And so if anybody's out there thinking, well, I don't know, think about it. Think about your story, what's happened in your life, and think about writing it down. Whether the actual what happened to each of us resonates. But I think the thing for me was that how what happened to us made us feel. And it's how it made us feel. And those feelings, the majority of people are going to resonate with, even if it's not the same. The accident that occurred to me is going to have been something that some people will have experienced. The hospitalization, the feelings of abandonment by your parents because they weren't allowed to come in and see you. Only talking to my mother a couple of weeks ago about it, and she said, she was 21 years old, or 21 years old. Her baby had just been scalded by this boiling milk going all over its face, down its neck. The jumper then stuck to the skin, and the ambulance got both of them to the hospital. At the hospital, the nurses took me and told her, "We've got her now, you can go home."
That doesn't work.
I accept, what did my parents go through? To be followed by having a daughter that died when she was 9 weeks old.
Oh.
And that was all, when I say within an 18-month period, I was 18 months old when that happened.
I can't even imagine.
So and initially they were investigated because it was a cot death. It was only the autopsy that cleared them because there was something the hospitals had missed that she'd actually died from. So, the trauma isn't just that of the baby who felt rejected and abandoned by parents and then by a sister, but the trauma that the parents were going through at the same time. And it's how do we move on from that? And it makes me wonder, sort of listening to my mother at times and knowing how she is, has she ever actually recovered, to be perfectly honest? And knowing what people say about basically trauma within our DNA that we've inherited, and knowing some of the stories of the feminine line of our family. And it's just like, what's going on? And so it's really important, the more of us that can become truer to ourselves, giving everybody permission to become true to themselves, can heal that trauma throughout the generations. And hopefully, I haven't had children, both my sisters have, but hopefully can heal the ongoing generations rather than stories keep repeating themselves. So you use the word moving, and you're talking about a physical moving in your respect, in your case. So, but it's about move, and I actually, mine included that as well. But it's about us in our lives moving forward and looking at those earthquakes, and being able to look back and see the gift that they gave us.
When Jennifer and I had become friends, at that point we were both invited to write our chapters, and were accepted to write our chapters, and we began working together, discussing our chapters. And you speak to the point that I wrote about, the moment for me. I wrote about my fear of public speaking, and all my years, either it be in church or work, I found myself in a point where I was on the stage for something or other and always found it incredibly difficult. In fact, to a point where I fainted once on the floor of the church after I tried to speak. And so I thought, this would be great. I'd been suffering from this fear since I was a kid. And if I could overcome this, I think this would be a chapter worth writing about. And I took it on not knowing what the cure was yet, but then started working with Jennifer during that process. And at one of our work sessions, we went to a retreat, a women's group retreat for the day to sit and share. And I was to give a mini presentation that day, which I did. And as is typical for me, I got teary-eyed. It was an emotional thing that I was talking about. And I got teary-eyed and I get embarrassed and I fluster and I get all red in the face and all of that. And I asked Jennifer that day on the way home and from calling her from my car, what is the matter with me? Why do I do this? Why can't I they're nice people. They're kind. They're not going to beat me up or anything. And I go through the same process. And she just took a breath and smiled. And she said, she said, you might try throwing some love at it. And bottom line, she was saying, throw that love at yourself. Yeah. She said, you're worried about people seeing your vulnerabilities. You're worried about them seeing you as you truly are. And what you truly are ain't that bad. And just be kind to yourself. As you just said, Sara Jane, be true to yourself. And that's the whole process that I've been working through. And then it expanded into all of these life changes and has helped me to get through what I've been going through.
So she missed a little something there, a detail about her presentation that day, of which she was so ashamed. And honestly, there was a point at which you could just feel, she started to cry while she was presenting what she was presenting because she was so passionate about it. And she was ashamed of that at first. And I said to her,
ashamed of crying in front of people, not of what I was talking about.
Right. And I was watching the room and I said, absolutely the opposite of that. I said, when you started to speak and you were overwhelmed with emotion and passion about it, the room was rapt. They just were they were mesmerized. And you don't realize how that vulnerability and that shame you were feeling for being vulnerable is exactly what connected with the audience. And that's what you have to love, is that you have that. I also want to say one other thing, because Sue gives me an inordinate amount of credit for the process that she went through. But I think what's really important about this relationship is that I am just beginning to integrate what we did into my real estate business. And it's very different than what most of the other realtors are doing. And what Sue enabled me to do was learn how to, because we already had a connection. We already had the relationship that we trusted each other. So I could test things out with her and she could tell me truthfully how this feels and how it really worked for her. And so I learned, I think, twice as much from Sue going through the process as she says she learned from me. So just so you know, credit where credit is due.
But it's really important that we give ourselves credit. And, as you've just said, actually, it's us being able to put ourselves. I know I can tell my story without masses of emotion. I really can, because it holds no power over me anymore. And that's, and some people, yes, I can tell the water what works on. I'm very good at doing that if I have to. And a lot of women are. But that wouldn't be that authentic for me to do that in that situation. I know what happened. I've known for as long as I can remember what happened to me as a child. But obviously as a child, you can't have anything explained to you because you don't understand. You just know that the person that should be there for you isn't. And that's it. You have no understanding of what the others around you are going through, what the adults are going through. And so to me, one of the most important things is, as we get older, when we learn about something, it's our understanding of what happened, and that changes from what the child felt.
Mm.
And I love the fact that there is the quote, which I actually put into the book. And I never remember it perfectly, but as a traumatized child, we were desperately waiting for the adults that would come and save us. What we didn't understand was that it would be ourselves as an adult.
Mm.
And so the importance for all of us is it's our journey through our trauma, not to try and take it away, but to understand what happened. Doesn't mean, because I mean, some traumas are horrendous traumas. Yeah, they are so inflicted on us by others. Which, okay, yes, that the hospital, the rules and regulations inflicted the emotional and mental trauma on me. They did what they thought was the best thing. Yes. But I think you're not condoning what happened. It's about getting an element of understanding. And as the adult can understand, we can support that younger self, however old they are. You know, you of 2 years ago, so you know, or 3 years ago when you moved, you know, sort of what you experienced, that's your younger self.
Yes, the kid in me was not so happy.
But it is accepting that, you know, can we support our child to heal, to feel listened to feel heard, to feel loved? And we're the only one who can do that.
Yeah.
And so it is from trauma to transformation, and it will mean physical moves. And it was really important that I didn't stay in Northampton. The job went, the marriage had already gone. So being able to move, physically move, was, and away from that area, was exactly the right thing to do. For a totally different reason, but it was the family. I didn't do it because it was family. It was just that, okay, I had a job to go to if I chose to. I then took redundancy and went and worked for somebody else. But it was to give. It was not fun going through the broken jaw and the 6 months of pain and sleepless nights. But it stopped me from being the people pleaser. And so trauma is the Lifequake. And I think that's the important thing of realizing that when things appear to be going wrong in our lives, actually, they could be the biggest gift if we could just sit back and open to what actually is really going on.
I think you had asked us why did the two of us want to come together and speak to you together. The fire engine's going to go by right now. So sorry.
Our new house.
Have no way of stopping that. And there they go. You'd asked us, you know, why did we want to speak together about this? And what I think is so important in all of this is that lots of things are important, but not when you're making a big step like this. And now I think I'm speaking to all the 70 plus women in the world that decide to move across the country, or they and their husbands, or they not decide to downsize and make a big change, which is a really shift going on in our demographic these days across the country. It's a big deal. We all try to be so strong. I know we're looking at, you know, 3 women here that are very strong, and we work really hard, and we do a lot. But at the same time, we are vulnerable, and some of this work that we do could really use the benefit of some help. And that's why I want to just shout out Jennifer and her Gracing Agefully program. Here comes the second fire engine. There's always 2. So we'll just let that one zoom right by. And the other thing I wanted to say too is that it's been 2 years of work. It's been at least 2 years. It takes time, and it's okay. And that's something I've also needed to accept for myself. I tend to want to fix things and I want it right now. And here was a time where I had to slow my train down and get healthy.
I also think, I mean, I'm in the same age category, so I'm not planning to move anytime soon, but I see what is possible at this age, whereas when we were younger, we would have thought by now, you're going down that road to the retirement community, you're going to need assisted living. I feel we have a much longer runway now, and I really want to help other people of our generation understand that this is not the end. This is a new beginning, and you really can realize some very important dreams. I mean, Sue made a move that was dramatically different than this was. Close to the firehouse. I mean, she feels very safe now. Anyway,
Close to the fire department.
She's living in her dream house now, so to speak. I mean, it was exactly what she had described that she wanted in terms of location and what she was near and the house itself. And it all worked for her, and it can for other people our age. It really is a new beginning.
Thank you. Sara Jane, I'm desperately looking for my mute button and can't find it. So if this is a four alarm fire, I just give up. I'm very sorry.
No, but there's something that's sort of saying to me, because whenever I hear a sirened vehicle, and I don't have to know whether it's ambulance, police, sort of fire, whatever, I always invite in Archangel Raphael and his angel healing. So my reaction has been, okay, Raphael,
we need you.
Yeah. There's a chance that you're going to be needed, supporting the fire crews, the ambulance crews, the sort of the police, whatever, and the people that they're supporting, and anybody else that requires some support. So I obviously was meant to hear, because I was obviously meant to ask for the help. So,
there you go.
So I never look at things and think, well, correction, sometimes I do, but with this, it's just like, okay, I was meant to know about that. But you do have a mute button, and it is up at the top. There are 5 circles, and one's video, so please don't turn that off. And the next one is turn audio off, and then you can turn it back on again. So
there you go. So you try
that must be
a little microphone.
I can't find it, and it appears to be the end of the world. So I don't know what to say.
Yeah, don't worry about it. So it really, we're accepting it, and this is what I love about doing the program. It's live, and it is what it is. We get the glitches as we did at the beginning.
I am 20 minutes from the Capitol, so you just never know what's going on out here. Oh my goodness. I do apologize for that.
And you don't, and the truth is, you don't need to apologize. That's absolute, it was like you being on stage and the tears flowing. There's no need to apologize. It's about realism, and we are here and we're being real. And I think maybe this is also an aspect of this, is be real in your own life. Be true to you. What is speaking to you from your heart? For me, your heart is connected to your soul, and your soul knows, sort of the journey that you're on. Your soul is there to support you, and it'll support you through your heart. And so listen to the things that really speak to you, and sort of let go of this. It's sort of listen to your heart, but don't forget to take your brain with you. And I think that's very important. But it's not about brain first, then heart. It is about heart first. then brain, because your monkey mind will talk you out of anything, so, and I wouldn't mind betting there were aspects of your move. It was just like, am I really doing this? Yes, absolutely, to be with your children and your grandchildren. But, sort of, it's also everything that goes with a move. There will be a time when I do move from here. Been here 19 years now, and it will happen when it's meant to happen. And I think it's accepting that there are aspects we have of control over our lives, and there are other things that we have no control over, like sirens.
Oh, boy.
So true.
I just found the mute button, Sara Jane. So if any more fire engines come by, I see now where it is. So
I think it guarantees that everyone is safe from fire now.
What was that? 3 or 4 of them, not just 2?
Yes, that was 4.
That must be one big fire. So I hope everyone's okay.
Well, actually, the scary part is 2 went this way and the other 2 went that way, so they probably got lost. And they.
Oh, it was the first 2 turning around and going back.
Yeah. So prayers are lifted for all those involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Lifequakes. And we've mentioned this, and it was a word that sort of I saw fairly recently, and it was just like, I love that word. I love that description for the times of chaos and disruption that occur in our lives. And so any thoughts from either of you, because I think it describes so perfectly some of the things that have happened in my life. So should we come to you first, Jennifer?
Okay. So I think I would lean back on the chapter that I wrote for the Gifts of Wisdom, which, first of all, when I thought I would be writing in the book, I immediately thought, oh, that's exactly where I should be with Gracing Agefully. I fit right in. I did not know I was going to write the chapter I wrote, which is The Unexpected Gift of Infertility. And it was 30 years after I had made this discovery, had that relationship, etc. And when we were, kind of assigned, we're getting into the window of time to write the chapter, it just, again, it came through me and it came out on paper, and I had never really brought up what was in there. But that was really a life quake for me, because I was having surgery in order to correct my infertility. It didn't work. My relationship ended. I was almost 40 at the time. And a lot of the pieces that I thought were going to fall into place, all of a sudden, like an earthquake, the earth opened up and they fell in, and I was left with a totally different path than I thought. And now, going back to that, writing about the experience and the things that happened after, in terms of my relationship, my understanding of where I was going down not a good path with what I was trying to do, or I was trying to do it for the wrong reasons, I would say. And realizing that now and writing about it was so cathartic for me that I think I had a healing that I had never healed before, even though it had started. It fully healed by the time I finished writing the chapter and putting the chapter out there, because it took a lot of courage for me to put it out there, because I admitted a lot of things to myself that I had never opened up until that chasm opened up and that came out. So it changed the whole path of my life, the whole direction of my life. And today I just celebrated my 25th anniversary with my husband, who I met after that, and who that relationship was very soon I became aware of how much healthier that was and how much more respectful of myself was my new relationship. So that's really where I see Lifequake working into my story.
So
I'll talk to you about earthquakes. I've been through a couple very, very big traumatic earthquakes. And after an earthquake hits, there's always some dust that flies up and settles back down. And there's a quiet that happens after a big earthquake. Everyone stops yelling and screaming. Everyone kind of sits in the quiet and waits for the aftershocks and gives thanks for making them their way through that earthquake. And my Lifequake that I just experienced over the last couple of years is much like that. The quake happened, there's dust in the air, and it settled back down. And I'm now at a point of feeling some tremendous peace in the transformation that I have gone through. And Jennifer, I mean, it's so interesting. You say that it was transformative for you too to just write that chapter. Of course, it was for me. And having you be there in my life, just for some reason, you should drop in and go, well, if you just throw some love at it. And so now, here I am at this point in my life, and I can sit and laugh with both of you, dear women, and talk. And I know I'm not going to faint afterwards. I've come such a long way. And so I'm thinking of that Lifequake has happened. It did. And I made it through it once again, like all the other big quakes I've been through. And I am now thinking more about my needs and truly acting in a way that is more self-serving. It is selfish in a good way. And that's what I've learned through all of this process. That it's okay to go and buy the house that you actually want, the one that you want, not the one someone told you should want. That's huge for me. And I know for women my age, there are other women out there, it's huge for them too. And so I'm just very grateful for the opportunity that we've had to share all of this. And I hope it helps someone along the way.
I think the important thing is, sort of what feels right for you, and being able to have, I'm going to use the word courage, to be able to say it. And a few years ago, because she's 87 now, but it was her 80th birthday, and my father died 13 years ago. And Mum had a new gentleman friend. I'd just been very brutally honest with her and sort of said, we're really delighted for you, but just stop shoving him down our throats, because at the end of the day, he's not our. Some of the things she was saying, I don't care that we were in our 60s and 50s and 60s. There are things that I don't think mothers should be sharing with their children, period. You might be sharing them with your own age group, but because I have a great group of friends and the things we talk about, but you don't really want to hear that from your mother. But mothers should be able to speak to it, but they should be speaking about it within their own age group, to me. And she had her 80th birthday, but she never got on with his daughter. And it was always the daughter's fault. But I can believe there was aspects of mother in there as well. Bless her. And they were she said, no, don't want to party. Then she turned around and said, actually, she did. And so my middle sister, who lives right here in Bournemouth as well, sort of said, okay, we can do something at the house. And and she ended up by inviting his daughter down, and one of his grandchildren came down as well. And it was just like, you don't like the woman and you've invited her, and it just doesn't make a scrap of sense. I know it's his daughter, but there were aspects about his daughter he wasn't fond of either. Let's just put it that way. And then I said, I would like to do something that is purely our family. Her friend could come, but not his family to it. And I was prepared to do that here. And so I was getting sort of sorted out with the invitations and whatever. And she said, oh, can she come? And I said, no. Because she didn't like her. It was meant to be our family, you're her family, not. And it was just like, and then I was like, but I was true, because it was just like, why would you invite somebody to your home when I know the energies of this house? People love coming to this house. My clients come to this house. I use the Reiki and the sound, and I use everything that I work with, the energies of the angels, as we talked about just now, and Archangel Raphael. This room's got lots of little angel ornaments all around it, so we've got dragon ornaments around the place as well. That's the energies of this house. Why was I going to bring in a negative energy? I wasn't going to do that. So the result was I didn't actually do anything, because it was, it was just like, but it's being true to you regardless. And you know what? My being true to me, my being honest, has now given other members of the family permission to do the same.
Absolutely.
And my mother is starting to learn to say no. And that's so important. No, that doesn't resonate with me. We don't have to give a reason, but no, that doesn't resonate. Because we're creating more trauma in our lives by saying yes to things that don't resonate with us.
Absolutely.
So our story, our sharing, sadly, things become very manipulative. Are we going to turn around and say, actually, no? And that's the important thing. Sadly, her gentleman friend has died in the meantime as well. So sort of, it was, and yeah, very sad. And so that then things she's been going through. We've now got mother back full time, where she was spending lots of time with him, but they lived so many miles apart. But we supported her in all of that. We support people, and that's what we should do.
The gift that we have to be able to feel comfortable sharing together and talking to each other about what we feel in the olden days would have been such intimate things, such provocative things that we would never discuss because we all want to look perfect in front of each other, or whatever the case may be. Here comes another fire engine. But Bill, I now can watch my daughters, both who are adults. I'm going to mute myself. You both just keep talking.
Okay, I'll chime in. I was just going to say, Sara Jane, I think what you brought up about saying no also is such an important point. And we're all women. We're all, in the same age category. We were all brought up in the same culture that it wasn't polite to say no. You don't want to hurt someone's feelings.
No.
And there was never respect for your own feelings, where you become this yes person. So I think it really is beautiful what you have mentioned about the relationship with your mother and being true to yourself by saying no to her, and that everyone else, saw the appeal of that for themselves. It's really a great lesson, and something we all have trouble with. I mean, to this day, I'm sure even you do too, that it's one of the hardest things for women to do, is say no and not feel that they're being impolite.
Just the other day, my daughter called sort of out of the blue, and she said, "Would you like to come over and hang with me? Maybe we could take the dog for a walk." And I hesitated, and for probably the first time in my life, said, "You know what? I am just beat. I really don't feel like it. I think I'm going to have to say no." And there was a long pause. She goes, "Wow, congratulations, Mom."
This was a test.
Yeah, I almost felt like it was, but it struck me, the model that you become to your children, that you are even when you don't think you are, even when they think they don't even like you and they don't pay much attention to you, apparently they do. And apparently they know more about you than you thought they did. And so I think it counts, it matters. And to, even at this age, to make changes that are healthier for me are ultimately going to be a nice role model for my young ones as well.
And that's what we are, isn't it? We're a role model. I may not have children, but I've got 5 nieces and nephews and 9 great nieces and nephews. So the family's not little. And one of them, she's come and done her Reiki with me, and she's very much on a similar sort of wavelength, which is lovely. And I think she finds it at times easier to speak to me than she does to her mother. But, and don't get me wrong, sort of Katie is lovely. Katie will do anything for anybody, probably more than she should. But it is added as it is. It's always going to be how children are with their mothers and their fathers. It's that relationship of, trying to talk to mum, and she thinks she knows better than us still. But actually, it's got to say where we've learned an awful lot more. I'm not saying she doesn't know, but there's actually more that she doesn't know. So it's that whole thing, isn't it? Sort of, as for my poor youngest sister, mother definitely won't listen to her. But gratefully, Katie, Jackie, and I are all pretty close. And we sort of will support each other, and we're all getting an understanding that life doesn't have to be, as you were saying, Jennifer, that age group and that era we were brought up in, that said, you're the little, because actually the ages we are, we're the little woman who stayed at home while the husband went out to work. We had to have kids. We were tied to the kids. But it's like, why were wedding dresses white? Because all the instruments in the kitchen were white, and we were meant to be tied to the kitchen. So anybody that's now thinking about getting married, think, oh, white's not an idea then. So many things come in so many different colours these days. But back at the ages that from the age we grew up in, that was the thing.
Yeah,
women stayed at home in the kitchen with the kids, So and women have stepped away from that. I'm not saying they're still at home, but most families these days both have to go out to work.
Well, and most of us had to. Most of us had to, whether we thought that was going to be the way or not, and we did.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are coming to the end of the program. I have already put both of your websites up into the chat. Gratefully, that stayed there with all the toing and froing we had, which was brilliant. So I've done that. And for anybody who's watching this on YouTube, I will put their websites, susanernstauthor.com and gracingagefully.com. That's Jennifer's. I'll put those under the video on YouTube.
Beautiful.
The final share, anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to before we close? Sue.
I'm filled up. I can't think of another thing. This has been so enjoyable. I want to thank you for this opportunity, Sara Jane. It's been absolutely lovely. Thank you.
My pleasure. And Jennifer.
So I would say, if I were to look back on my mental and emotional state just 5 minutes before this call, I have learned a lesson about technology and embracing what is. And I realized that, when all the world seems like it's falling apart and it's not going to work, just take a breath, get centered, ask for a little help from above, and it will all work out as this did. So thank you, Sara Jane.
A real pleasure. Alicia, if you've got a question, please put it in the chat. Otherwise, because I know you've raised your hand to speak, but I've never actually used that facility, so I wouldn't know how to do it. I use only what I have to, and that's the basics. My apologies. I usually actually sort of take that off. I didn't get the chance because of everything that went on before. So my apologies, but please, if you've got a question, it's been lovely having you here, and I've obviously seen that you totally agree, really enjoying it all. And the don't worry, I think, was because of all the sirens. So thank you for being here. and I hope that you've enjoyed it, and it's spoken to you and it's supported you, and anybody that's watching live and listens to the recording. No, we can't hear you, Alicia, so I don't know, but if you can type in any question, please do that now. I'm just going to say what's happening next week, and then if you've put something into the chat, I'll ask the question before we go. Right, next week I am being joined by Mahalia Michael, and she's the founder of Brain Bliss, and we've talked. She's been on the program before. Lovely lady. Awaken your inner instrument with divine resonance, and she's very much into sound energy and working with whales and dolphins. It's brilliant. She's going to be lovely, and I'm sure that will be a brilliant program. Right, where to from here? Okay, I'm not sure what that means. It would help if I understood what you mean. Where to from here? We're going to be closing down the program in a minute. So does anybody understand that question? Because
I'm looking at the chat. I don't.
No.
I think, Alicia, I'll tell you, for me, what I'm excited about is that I'm now finding much more time to write. I'm finding that I get to finally do what I've always wanted to do, and I'm writing kids' stories, and I'm loving it.
Okay, and now she's put a comment saying, as in general trauma healing.
Oh, never mind.
No, that's fine. Alicia, personally, what I would say to you is find somebody that you can resonate with. I actually do work with people using sound energy. It's toning, and it's a technique I call vocal Reiki, and I help people to reconnect with that inner child, that aspect of you that has experienced the hurt, the trauma, and the pain. And I know how beneficial it is from the work I've done on myself and my little one. And I know that the people I've worked with, I can see a massive difference in them, from the person that walked in the room at the beginning of a session to the person who walks out, and that's in one session. But I'm not necessarily right for everybody, and I totally accept that. I mean, Jennifer, you said you sort of, because obviously you talk about trauma, and you're very much the agreement. Any sort of suggestions you've got for Alicia?
Yeah, I was going to say, so at the end of each of our chapters, we offer a tool or a practice that helps with healing. And mine is called Know Your Story, Heal Your Life. And so I do think, thank you, Sue. I do think that writing your story, telling your story, really getting inside of yourself and bringing your story of trauma out is also definitely the pathway to healing, and writing is an excellent way to do that. So I would say introduce her to Laura DeFranco.
I was going to say, Laura's sister is a psychotherapist who specializes in trauma. And if you reach out to me, Alicia, I can give you her contact information, and she can put you in touch with a psychotherapist if you feel that would be helpful.
Brilliant. And you want to tell your story, and do.
Definitely.
Yeah, do tell it. Fine, even if you're only starting by telling it to yourself, and then there are lots of people that can support you. But as I said, find something that works for and resonates with you. You're in CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. Seriously, talking therapies, I would say absolutely do them. I'm not necessarily convinced they can get quite to the cellular memory depth. There, it is much, much already a therapist too. It can go much deeper. It can get you back to the inner child. So, sort of, I wish you all the best with that. Don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. I'll be putting my information under the video on YouTube as well. Basically, my technique is just called vocal Reiki, and that's vocalreiki.com. So I hope you find what supports you through, and it has to be through your trauma. You will be able to do that if you're open to working with yourself. And it's about what you participate in. We can't do it for you. So thank you to my amazing guests, Jennifer and Sue. It's been a fabulous conversation. We had no idea really where it was going, and that's what I love about it. So thank you, ladies. It has been a real pleasure. Sure, I'll see you soon. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you for having us, and thank you, Alicia, for listening.
Thank you, Alicia.
And for commenting. You know, it's been brilliant that you did that.
Yep.
Take care, sweet souls. Be safe. Stay well.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.